and Bobby Spike is with me also to go over the measures. As I'm sure you well know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We do not take positions on candidates or on parties. We do, however, take positions on policy issues, on propositions and measures. So today we're kind of from the Voter Services Education arm of the League. So we try to be unbiased as best as we can and try to cover so you can make your decision.
That's not too loud, is it, Matt?
No.
Okay.
Excuse me? Okay. So what our plan is, we'll just go over briefly the 2 Alameda County measures. Then Bobby will move on to Berkeley and I will move on to Albany, and we might both pitch in when questions come in to best try to answer those questions. So the 2 measures we have, oh, and I hope everyone got their ballot. I was so excited to get my ballot in the mail. That was really, oh, there it is. There's the ballot. And there's even a sticker, I voted, I saw in there. Wonderful. So there are 2 measures on the Alameda County ballot. The first measure is Measure V, like in Victor. And this is actually an ordinance that would extend a utility tax, which has actually been a 6.5% tax rate that has been applied to unincorporated areas of Alameda County, such as San Lorenzo, Castro Valley. They've had this utility tax, which helps with the sheriff, library, city planning, but it also has funds that come to the general Alameda County. So there seems to be it's actually required that the entire county vote on this, even though it doesn't affect my taxes. It does continue their 6.5% for 12 years. And it has been approved every year since 1992. So this looks a bit like it's not controversial at all. So if you vote yes, this will continue the 6.5% tax on these unincorporated areas of the county. It'll bring in $12 million. And if you say no to this, then it will discontinue this utility tax. And the utility tax covers things like gas, electricity, I think video and telephone. So that is Measure V for Victor. If there are any questions, this one seems pretty straightforward, but please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, we will go to the second Alameda County measure, which is Measure W. And this is actually where the County of Alameda would raise the sales tax by 0.5%. And it's for 10 years. And this is for providing housing and services for those experiencing homelessness in Alameda County. They want to use this for mental health services, job training, some kind of safety net for people. This actually would bring $150 million annually, and they will have annual audits and citizen oversight. So this would mean about $262 per year for an average for the cost. It depends what kind of consumer you are. There's another figure they had here. They said that they have shown that 82% of those currently experiencing homelessness actually had lost their housing and were living in Alameda County beforehand. There's always concern of people moving from one area to another where services might be better. So I know that there's some concern, people are concerned that will this really all go to homelessness? Will it go to the general fund? That's always a concern. But I think at this time and age, 150 million annually could be quite helpful to our entire county. And that's a sales tax increase. That 0.5% goes, we are currently, I believe, at 9.25. That would bring us to 9.75% sales tax. So you would see that at your shopping. Any questions on Measure W?
I have one.
Yes.
I didn't quite follow the thing about people who'd been living previously in Alameda County. Is the extra support restricted to those who were already here? Or will, as you say, this simply be one more way of attracting people from all over to come and be homeless in Alameda? It drives me crazy to think about this stuff, but.
I know. So, that was just a statistic that they were giving people to kind of let you know that if it's 82%, we're serving our community is what they're saying. They're not saying it's restricted. I don't think there's any way that they could possibly restrict who the services go to. But I think it's actually on the pro side to say, these are our community. These are the people in our community who have lost their home and are homeless. They're not, well, I'm sure some are from Idaho or who knows, New York, wherever. It's hard to tell, but I believe they cannot restrict services at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there other questions?
Hi, yes, I have a question.
Hi.
In terms of the oversight, I have some experience with this because I used to work for the county in homeless services, and there was so much money given and it was so mishandled. And my concern would be that this would happen again with this money.
And that is the concern people have. And they say annual audits, citizen oversight, which sounds very nice.
That's good, but yeah.
It sounds good. And there is concern that the supervisors of Alameda County can kind of make their decisions. So that is a concern. And I think that is going to take some community pressure to follow those funds carefully. That's a big issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge the difficulty in even talking about this issue, because I keep thinking no matter what I say or think, I'm either going to feel like I'm extremely stingy and don't want to help any poor people, or I'm going to be, just inviting everybody to come and take advantage of us. It's crazy. I don't know. I'm just acknowledging the difficulty of it for probably all of us.
It is difficult. And, and I don't know exactly, will some of this money go to nonprofits? Will it go to some of these organizations that are already doing the work? That I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. Thank you for that. Okay, these elections are never easy, as I'm sure you see with the state propositions too. I think we should move on to the Berkeley measures. And Bobby Spike, who's also been a longtime league member and is a new Ashby Village member, right. She will be our next speaker. So, okay, Bobby.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is a task that I have, and I'll do my best. I know that the way the measures or local measures are written isn't always so clear. So the league has tried to clarify and give an overview of what the measure is, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of what the proponents say and what the opponents say. So I'm going to be somewhat brief. There's 8 of them. First measure is FF, and you can remember that by fire. FF stands for Fire, Emergency Services, and Wildlife Protection. And basically what this does is it sets a parcel tax on your property that's 10.5 cents per square foot of any improvement. That means your house or, you know, what you've added on for each parcel of real estate property in Berkeley to fund firefighters and emergency medical response. And, you know, lately we've experienced a lot of concern about fires. Very low income property owners would not be exempt, but I don't have the number, what qualifies for very low. The yes on this, the proponents say this will keep Berkeley safer by improving and upgrading 911 dispatch, emergency warning, ambulance services, and hopefully response to catastrophic wildfires, earthquakes, and other emergencies. That's what the proponents say. The opposition, the opponents say that the taxpayers are already giving the fire department $8 million a year with 3 assessments on fire and paramedic services. And so that Berkeley taxpayers already pay for fire and paramedic services. So they say it's not necessary. Of course, the yes people say we do need this, it'll be safer. And the opponents say, no, we already pay a lot of money. So are there any questions on FF, fire, emergency, and wildlife prevention?
I just wanted to comment. Oh, their Berkeley side, I don't know how many of you look at the Berkeley side newspaper. Did you see that, Bobby?
I saw it last night, and Berkeley side had an opinion piece. This is not necessarily the league's opinion, but they said there's so much disparity on how properties are assessed. So the parcel tax is not fair. That's what Berkeley side said. Are there any questions? Now, Regina, are people raising their hands, or are they putting the questions in the chat? How are they doing that?
So they can just speak up or raise their hand. We are not putting it in the chat. I think it just works if you speak and then your picture shows up and you're on.
Okay.
I don't know if we even need to raise hands. We'll see how this works.
Okay.
And then you just unmute yourself and go ahead with that. Yeah, I think we're all kind of jittery about fires this season.
Oh yeah, it was in the morning paper that there might be a blackout again starting Wednesday night. The winds are picking up. Okay, I'm going to move on because it's 8. This is
I have a question.
okay.
So the I don't see me up there, but maybe you see me. We heard the argument against FF is not about fire safety, but the lack of an end to this tax and the total lack of audit and oversight for how the tax is used. I thought that was perhaps the strongest argument against this measure. We're all in favor of helping the fire department and helping ourselves, but it seemed to me a very strong argument that this is not necessarily a good measure, even though its heart is in the right place.
Well, that's what the opponents are saying. We don't need it. They're already well funded.
Yeah, and I'm not even arguing that we don't need it. We may need it. I'm saying that it's not a good law.
Okay.
Or at least that's a strong argument.
Okay, good.
And what he was saying also is that it doesn't have an end, that it's not sunset. Is that what you were saying?
No sunset, it's forever.
It's forever. So that's a big, good piece of information.
Okay. Is there any more on FF? No? Okay, ready? Next one is after, these are going alphabetical order, is G, G, And you can remember that by it has for gig. Basically what it is the gig riders like Uber and Lyft start in Berkeley are not paying any tax except when they buy gasoline and so on. So what this measure does is saying Berkeley should get a profit off of those profit-making Lyft and gig rides. So they are proposing, well, they're calling it Transportation Network Company, okay, TNC. So they're proposing that every time you take a ride on one of those, it's 50 cents if it's a private ride, and 25 cents if there's more than you in the car. So that's to raise money for Berkeley services because they claim, you know, that the streets and so on at the payment of the trip. The tax is estimated to generate about $910,000 annually to pay for, to go into the general fund for government purposes. So every time you take a gig ride, it's 50 cents if you're alone, 25% if there's 25 cents if there's somebody else in the car. The proponents for this are saying that transportation network companies, TNCs like Uber and Lyft, have not paid their fair share. They're operated in Berkeley and they're not paying anything for the privilege of operating in Berkeley. Now this is just would apply to trips, excuse me, that originate in Berkeley, not came from maybe San Rafael to Berkeley, but originate in Berkeley. They estimate that, well, I already said at least $900,000 to go into the general fund. And they say that the municipal services are like maintaining streets, improving pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. So the city claims that they should get this money because they improve where the cars go. People that are opposed to GG say that Uber and Lyft provide Berkeley residents with and visitors with affordable and convenient mobility. The TNCs, that's again, the Transportation Network Company, they pay for city repairs by buying gasoline, and they're paying state gas tax and sales tax on gasoline and autos. So they say it's not fair. They already, the opponents say they already are contributing through other taxes, and the opponents, the proponents say that they will pay their fair share because they are profiting off of Berkeley City. So, are there questions on this? This is an interesting one.
Hi, I have a question. Thank you for sharing. And yes, so my question is, who is getting charged this additional fee? Is it the companies? Is it the passengers? Is it the drivers?
I'm not clear, but it seems to me it says 50 cents if you're alone, 20. Could it be that the rider it's added on to the total, and then I mean, I'm not clear on exactly how. I would think that the driver would add it on and is supposed to pay it back. That's my guess.
Who's going to collect it? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, is somebody going to be there saying, oh, here's a driver, we'll charge 50 cents here?
I don't think so. I don't know how it's going to be collected. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it would cost far more to set up a system.
I think it's like a sales tax.
It's what?
Yeah.
I think it's like a sales tax. It kind of is.
It just shows up.
It just shows up on the receipt and on the, you know.
I wonder.
It's,
I wonder if it is.
I just looked it up, and it's users who pay
Right.
the tax.
The user pays it
At the time, it says at the time of payment for the trip, and the TNC would remit the tax quarterly to the city of Berkeley.
Yeah, it's added on to the price, but then it's the driver responsible for giving it back to the city. That's not clear in this.
Well, I think that Uber itself would have their whole data system. They'd have their software engineers set up something where then they pay every month or something from that additional amount. So that's, I think that's how that would work. And then just one other thing is that if Proposition 22 gets passed, there's a clause in there from Uber saying that cities are not allowed to add these extra amounts. They cannot start setting up their own rules. That's if Proposition 22, the rideshare delivery people, this is that independent contractors, state of California proposition. I just wanted to throw that in. That would negate it all, even if Berkeley voted for it.
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing that I don't think I pointed out. I'm looking at my notes on the opposition, and one of the opposition says this is a forever tax, and they don't know how long it'll be. So, okay, are there any more questions on that? GG for gig.
Just one thing, it's almost a forever tax. I see here it says until January 1, 2041. That seems like forever, actually.
To us.
2041.
To us. Okay, if we're done with F and G, now we move on to H. HH is a utility users tax. And this has to do with PG&E. It says this measure increases the use tax for gas and electricity on your PG&E bill from 7.5% to 10%. And it's a user's tax, of course, on the bill. It includes a low income exemption. Of course, it doesn't state here what the low income is. Much of the increase in revenue will be to reduce Berkeley's carbon footprint. So this apparently is a measure that you pay more for using your electricity, and they will, which I'll go into in a minute, have programs to help with climate change. That's becoming more apparent. Okay, so specifically, this would increase your taxes on your electricity and gas, and it says this would not increase the rates on telephone or video services, only on gas and on electricity. And then HH in the city of Berkeley would rename the Energy Commission Climate Action Energy Commission, and it would be renamed, when I've got it here somewhere, provide the city. Well, it's a Climate Equity, the Action Fund to address climate related municipal issues. So it would be earmarked for programs that would reduce our carbon footprint. The proponents say this will speed up the reductions in greenhouse gases while reducing energy costs. So apparently the money that you're going to pay more on gas and utilities will go to programs to reduce global warming position. It doesn't say specifically. It says Measure HH would fund projects and programs that address the goals of lowering our carbon footprint. This says a Measure HH would save low-income residents, low-income $160 a year, while increasing by only an average of $53 a year for people that are not low-income. It says other residents. All right, that's the proponents. The opponents say, again, this measure is a deceptive forever tax increase. The tax revenue will be placed in the general fund and will be used for anything. So they're saying it's not earmarked specifically. All right, that's it. They're just saying it's a bad. The opponents say it's forever and it's not earmarked for specifics, and the proponents say it is earmarked, well, that it's going to go into reducing our carbon footprint. So, questions? Just
Sounds nice, but it's pretty vague.
yeah. Right. Well, it's not. It doesn't say what specific programs.
No more than that.
I actually listened to Kate Harrison, who's the author of this bill, Council Member Kate Harrison, last night on an event, and she was talking about things related to transportation, things related to the bicycles, et cetera, but it's really to be developed, and it's really to further, there's such concern now about climate change, to really have some funding behind the climate action plan that Berkeley had voted unanimously, had voted with way back in, I think, 2004. And one thing I learned from, not one thing, I did learn from her that the low-income residents not only are exempt from this, but they actually eliminate their utility tax. So I didn't realize that. That's why it says 160 per year that they save, saving the low income. So that was just a piece I wanted to mention.
Oh, I'm looking for. Okay, any other comments, criticism, corrections? Okay, next is this an I or an L? I. This is a police, this has to do with the Berkeley Police Force, Police Accountability Charter Amendment. It says, this measure would replace the current Police Review Commission, which we have now, with a Police Accountability Board having more power, including the power of subpoena. It would establish a Police Accountability Director. Complaints about police conduct would be filed with and investigated by the director. Members of the board intended to represent an inclusive cross-section of Berkeley's population, and the selection process will be public. So what this is doing is redoing the police, the oversight committee, which I know I lived in San Diego and they had a couple of friends on it. And at that time, my friends didn't think they had much power, but this was they're trying to get, but that was years ago. Okay, so what this measure would do, and this is II, this would create a 9-member police and accountability board to replace the existing police, what this was called, Police Review Commission. A director of police accountability would be responsible, so there would be somebody at the head of it to investigate complaints against sworn members of the Berkeley Police Department. This would give what they're claiming more power to watch the police department, including the review of the budget, the review complaints against sworn members, and to recommend what kind of disciplinary action to take. It would establish 2 separate processes by which a member of the public could submit a police misconduct complaint, and it has to be determined, a final determination within 240 days of the complaint. 240 days, okay, half a year. All right, the proponents are saying that this will be more effective civilian oversight of our police, the police conduct, and it's estimated to cost about $300,000 a year, which is less than 0.5% on the police department's budget. The city council, this does not take away power from the city council. The city council would still have the ultimate say over policing policy, and the city manager would retain their authority. So it is basically a citizen review board, and there is no argument that's placed that's against this. So, any questions out there, Ashby Village? Okay, well, there's no opposition. Okay, ready? JJ, this is a mayor and council compensation. Now, this has to do with money, compensation for the mayor and the city council. This measure would raise the mayor's salary from $5,180 per month to $8,941, and I'll tell you the total in a minute, and raise the council person's pay from $3,224 a month to $5,633 a month. Although the mayor and council should be compensated for all the work they do, this measure does not include a funding mechanism or to make it possible to balance the city's budget. So specifically, now I know it's going to come up the number. Wait a minute. Okay. All right. So the city charter is going to, so basically what this is raising the salary, the annual salary on the mayor, that the mayor receives, and the council people. The mayor's annual income would be approximately $107,300 per year, which it says in here that this reflects, but I didn't agree with this one. This is okay. Let me tell you, $107,300 per year for the mayor, and the council people would be $67,599, and they would be adjusted to annual based on changes in the median income. All right. The proponents say that reasonable compensation allows leaders from diverse backgrounds to answer the call is a key to equitable, accessible, and effective government. In other words, they're saying that if you raise the salary, more people with less income, more people will be able to become mayor or be on the council. Now, this is interesting to me. It says now the very low compensation makes it impossible for many to serve. So anyway, so they're saying that right now the mayor gets, wait a minute, did I miss it here? Oh, the mayor gets 5,000 something per month, and it would go to 8,900 a month. So it would encourage more lower income people that can afford to run for those positions. There's a formula tying the mayor's compensation to that of a low income household. And that states on here, this is interesting to me, a low income household is $107,300. And the council members to a very low income, $67,599. Did you have a comment?
Bobby, I have a comment. You know, I have conflicting things on my information. So I'm looking at the County of Alameda voter information guide on JJ. I think that we've had a little, I think something's different here. I just want to read this. For Measure JJ, this is the city attorney's analysis. The Berkeley City Charter now provides that the mayor is paid $2,850 per month. I think we had something wrong in our
1,180 is what it says in the
and that's for city council members are paid a rate of $1,800 per month. So their annual salary, the mayor is at the current rate is $61,304 per year. Council members are $38,695. I think on our other, something we had with the league had a much higher rate. So I'm actually looking at the Alameda County. So I think this should be accurate of currently what we have now.
Well, yeah, for the league, then what do we say about this? We just say, this is what the league says. This is what the county says.
Well, I think we go by what it says here is their current salary. And we might have to ask Jesse what he's paid per month, you know? No, I'm sorry, we don't. But I think that our paperwork here might have been inaccurate.
Because it says 500, I mean, it says over 5,000 a month. And what does the county say for the current mayor's salary?
No, this is actually in our voter guide. They're saying that the mayor is paid $2,850 per month, which was set in 1998. and that the council is 1,800. So I just want to clarify, I think that must be accurate if it's our voter's guide.
May I say something?
Yes, please.
It says that's what they were paid as of 1998, but there's been a cost of increase over the years. And so now they pay now the mayor is paid 61,000 and the city council people are paid 38. But those numbers of 2,850, they were set in December and they have been adjusted upward.
Thank you for clarifying that. So of course, when we divide that per month, then we have a higher figure. Thank you so much.
Okay, so which are the accurate figures? We still, what the other woman said is probably more in the ballpark.
I think that's correct. So as a result now with the increases they've had over those years, we've got the annual rate. So I think you're probably right when you say the 5,180. Thank you very much for that.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, back to JJ, we're not exactly clear exactly on the salaries, but it's a measure to raise the mayor's salary and the council people's salary. And the opponents say that you would be giving the mayor and city council a 75% raise during a great budget crisis time. That's what, so. Okay, that one, I'm sorry, that's not real clear, but it's, do you want to give the mayor, I guess you can only do that and be on the city council as a full-time job, huh? Okay, Measure KK, this is a charter amendment. This is not very specific, but what it does, no, this is, I was reading the wrong one. This is specific. Okay, this KK would make changes to part of the city charter. The basic thing is that city firefighters of residency, apparently they have to live within the city. So now it's changing it so that they wouldn't have to live within the city. It would rename Citizens Redistricting Commission to the Independent Redistricting Commission. That's another one. And replace gender-specific references to gender-neutral pronouns such as they and their. So this is a few charter amendments provision. The proponents say that KK would lift firefighters' residency requirements, which would allow Berkeley to recruit firefighters from a broader geographic area. Well, I know this is also a problem to recruit social workers and teachers because live in Berkeley is very expensive. So this is making it broader for firefighters. Specifically, they don't have to live within the parameters. I guess it's just Berkeley, it doesn't say that. It just says that they can, they have different residency requirements. Lifting the firefighters' residency requirements will allow Berkeley to recruit firefighters from a broader geographic area while still ensuring emergency response capability. That's basically what it does. And also, but they're not taking a lot of position on, replace the gender specific pronouns like she or he with they and theirs. So there is no argument proposed against this. So are there any comments on that one?
Yeah, I think this is kind of weird in a way, because by letting fire people live within 40 miles of the city, that means they can get them to, with paying them a less salary. But on the other hand, if there's a big emergency, we need those kind of people here fast. And if they live 40 miles away and there's some kind of emergency going on, it's going to make them much harder to get here. I don't know whether this is an argument in favor or against it, but this is one of those propositions that when you start looking into it, it gets pretty complicated, even for experts, much less us.
Well, you know, I know the cost of living in San Francisco and Marin and Berkeley, very hard to get people that are not paying a high salary to live there, because So that's what they're addressing firefighters specifically in this. They're not saying school teachers. That would come from the school board, no. So are there any other comments on that?
I think one comment that was in favor of this, I read somewhere, was that now we have these agreements between Oakland, Albany, Berkeley, Contra Costa County, where if there is a big emergency, that they are working together now. You're not just covering your own city. So they have some kind of agreement where they join in. I think that came a lot after the big Oakland, Berkeley fire. I forgot what the
Right.
word is for that.
They don't have to live there. Okay, are we ready to move on to LL? This is the GAN, which is famous for Jarvis GAN and Proposition 13, the GAN. I guess they did a lot of things. All right, LL would do, this measure would extend the voter-approved spending authorization by 4 more years and allow to appropriate funds generated by the city taxes for fiscal years without increasing taxes. So basically what it's doing is extending the voter approved spending. It'll go 4 more years, it'll go longer. The GAN spending was known as Proposition 13. Local governments spend only those taxes for a given budget period, which in 2016 was 4 years. Measure LL requests approval for 4 more years. In other words, when the citizens approved spending, it was for 4 years, and that was from 2016 to 2020. And this is requesting it to go for 4 more years, 2021 to 2024. So I guess in the GAN initiative, they really constricted the amount of time. Okay, the proponents say the population has grown by 11% in 10 years, and we have a shrinking staff that has been providing more services. So in other words, the population has grown, but the staff of the city that runs the city has not grown. So there's more work. So if we extend it, this is what it reads to me, that if it does not pass, we're going to lose a lot more money because the staff won't be able to enact all the services we need. Instead of going every 4 years to appropriate money, they'll do it 4 more years. So, all right, that's what the proponents say. The opponents say Proposition LL will require city be reimbursed. This is one that's really not clear to me, I've got to be honest. So this measure is not approved in time the city might have to rebate in other words, they're saying if we don't extend for 4 more years, we won't have enough money to go 4 more years, and they have to rebate that money back to the citizens. So there's no new taxes, there's no increase in the existing taxes. It's just here because every 4 years, the voters grant the city authority to spend taxes that have been approved. A yes measure will cover 4 more years, 2021 to 2024. So, are there any questions on that?
It actually just allows the city of Berkeley to go ahead with everything that has been
For 4 more years.
And it is something that comes up every 4 years. And it just needs a majority to pass.
Does this come up every 4 years?
Yes, I think by law.
4 years?
And it's generally just has smooth sailing. It goes right through to allow the city to go ahead with what's been approved.
Okay, are there any more comments? That's LL. Okay, now we're going to go on to MM, which has been somewhat controversial and somewhat not clear, very unclear. But I'm going to do the league has gotten it down to a paragraph, so I hope this clarifies it. MM, they're calling it rent stabilization and eviction for good cause amendment. This measure, MM, implies, well, they're saying it implies that it removes payment of rent from the list of reasons a tenant can be evicted for just cause. But the city, it says already is temporarily true. In other words, you cannot evict at this time a tenant because they can't afford to pay. They can't afford to pay the rent. This does not extend the time. I guess it's during, the crisis right now. This measure primarily relates to ADUs, which is, we call them granny flats, accessory dwelling units, or in-law cottages, and how to regulate them. That's what this is really basically about, how to regulate them. It says that the ADUs, granny flats, used to be single family homes in the backyard, but now apartment owners are also adding them to their property as well. So this puts some more jurisdiction on the ADUs. The ADUs need some regulations, but it's a mixed bag. This is what, I know this one isn't clear. MM would do, here's what MM would do. It would prohibit eviction for non-payment of rent during state local emergencies while maintaining rent control and stabilization. In other words, still during this emergency, you cannot evict a person for non-payment of rent. So it talks about that, but that's not different. Then it says, the Rent Stabilization Board will collect information from owners of those properties, and they will charge a registration fee for the units covering cost of registration and counseling. It would not apply to property owners who rents out their own home. Basically, what this, even though they talk about, it said they're talking about that you cannot evict for non-payment of rent. The main point of that's already an established thing for their city. So basically what this is saying is newly built and other similar units need to register and pay their fair share for services. So it really does have to do with the backyard granny flats, in-law unit. Okay, this is, so that's what it is. All right, the people that are, the opposition says that this is poorly designed and will discourage homeowners from creating the ADUs, accessory dwelling units. That's basically what they're saying, that it'll discourage adding them and with no new tenant protection. I'm trying to skim down the law. This is really not clear. MM raises fees without an oversight is another opponent's argument. This measure would even require that owners of all rented accessory dwelling units, single family homes, pay a registration fee. Okay. So it really has to do with people, and I know that some cities, I don't know, Berkeley, have encouraged people to build these granny flats because there was more housing available. Now they're saying that they need to be registered and they need to pay their fair share in taxes. That's MM. So I can imagine there's comments on this. Well, let's not all speak at once. No, it's really very confusing because it talks about two issues. It talks about, non-payment of rent for eviction, and it talks about paying taxes on the granny flat. That's what I call it, a granny flat. But people are moving in there because rentals are so high. Any comments? Okay, well, that's the 8 Berkeley propositions. I clarified them as best I can because these measures are not always clearly written, but you can read them again on the county pamphlet.
Great, and you can get confused like I was on the county pamphlet.
Yeah.
I guess I had to read the next sentence on some of that.
Difficult, even the state propositions are somewhat easier to read. somewhat.
Right, right. I'm curious how many, oh, I don't know if there are any questions. I should hold off a second. I'm curious how many Albany residents we might have in the audience. How can we do that? You can do a show of hands. Whichever, I will move forward with the Albany measures as best I can here. We have, let's see, we have 4, look at that. I think that's right, no. 6, excuse me, okay. The first one is BB, the ranked choice voting. That's something Berkeley has. And Albany is looking at that to adopt a change where they would have the city council and the school board members be elected with ranked choice voting. And ranked choice voting, it's kind of a way of having an instant runoff voting so that you do not end up with a runoff election. So it's a tabulating system where when you vote, they'll have a little separate column on the right where you can put your number 1 choice, your number 2, your number 3, and really give your preference when you're choosing. If maybe 2 slots are open on the city council, you can put your number 1 person. You're not allowed to put number 1 on all of your choices though. You have to do 1, 2, 3. So if there's not a clear majority, if someone gets the 50% plus 1, they would be elected. If there's not a clear majority, they look at the list and they drop off the lowest person, and then they reassign the votes to the next candidate, voter's second choice. It's kind of a little complicated thing. So it would allow people to rank voters. It would allow quicker results from the election. So the supporters feel that adopting this in Albany would actually empower each voter to really give their big preference, vote their favorite best candidate. And they feel it would also most likely increase the candidates running from Latino groups, from Asians, from African Americans. The people against are saying, you know, we already have in Albany, oftentimes if a minority is running, they will get elected. They also feel that Albany really doesn't have many runoff elections. Usually a runoff would cost about $26,000. So anyhow, that's it on ranked choice voting. It's a little complicated, but I believe Oakland as well has it just for a couple positions, mayor and maybe council. So it's something Albany had been looking at. Are there any questions on that?
I'd like to make a comment,
Great.
but basically bottom line is that it's more efficient method of voting, and you don't have to have the expense of a runoff. So that's basically what it's all about. Just one vote, and then the body will be able to figure out who the winner is.
Thank you. So Albany Measure DD is a utility users tax. That seems to be what we're talking about a lot on these 2 elections. It's very similar to Berkeley. Let's see here. It also, the city utility tax, it'll go from 7 to 9.5% on gas and electricity. The one difference is that they're also applying it to water services. So there'll be an additional for water services as well. This would provide an additional $675,000 into the budget for Albany. And there's, let me see if I have this right. This was actually, the revenues would be for, excuse me, I think I have this right. This was actually going to be for, oh, let's see where I have this, for general city operations as well. I believe also for climate, excuse me here where I have this. Here we go. These funds would be in efforts to promote sustainability, provide emergency response, and for emergency response planning and other important city services. It recommends a third of the new revenues be used for climate protection and adaptation actions, such as transitioning from gas to clean, renewable generated electricity. So this covers a little more specific there. And it also, for low-income houses, those that are enrolled in CARE and CAP would have a reduction, and they're actually exempt here, like in Berkeley, they're exempt from the proposed existing utility taxes. And there, I think if you end up having the tax, you might have to supply that information to the city for the rebate. I'm not quite sure how that works. And this would bring in $675,000 annually. Any comments? Oh, here I have a little detail. For a $100 monthly bill, there would be an increase from $7 to $9.50. And for the water bill, $100, that's a bi-monthly water bill. The new charge would be $7.50 for a bi-monthly bill. And there's a feeling that Albany really needs this for the services that the city provides. And it's equitable that it actually considers low income. Any comments on this? Any questions? Okay, let me see here. Okay, ECC, I should do these in order. I have CC, they're a little bit out of order. I feel like I'm missing something, sorry. Okay, CC is the real property transfer tax. So this is again to support Albany General Services, including emergency response, environmental programs, community services. And this would increase the city's real property transfer tax from $11.50 to $15 per 1,000 purchased. It would provide an additional $392,000 annually until ended by voters. I guess it would have to be voted again. So this is, well, let's say an owner, if you're selling your house and you sell your house for $750,000, the transfer tax would go up from $8,600 to $11,000.
I'm gonna put this in the other room for once.
This fee is usually split between the buyer and seller. It's equitable because it includes both residential and commercial. So let's see what else we have here. There's a lack of sunset provision. It would have to be put on the ballot again. So the people who are against this are saying that Albany homeowners have voted this down, identical measure not long ago. And there are 2 other local tax measures on the ballot already for this election. And then they say there's no guarantee that the money from this will be directed to emergency services. It's kind of looks like it's really going to the general fund. Okay, let's see. And the rebuttal says that the proceeds from the tax have been carefully calculated to match Albany's general fund needs, it does go to the general fund. And they say a 1.5 transfer tax would be equal to Berkeley's and Oakland's transfer tax. Are there any questions on that? Okay. So that was CC. It's hard to keep track of all of these here. Then we have EE. This is the Paramedic Advanced Life Support, Fire Engines and Ambulance Special Tax. This would need a 2/3 vote. And this is to maintain the City of Albany paramedic and life support, fire engine, ambulance service, et cetera. And what it is, it's a special tax that would go from the current $23 to $68 per assigned residential unit. That would provide about $359,000 annually until it's ended by the voters, exempting low-income residents. They talk about annual audits. So there's been concern if Alta Bates gets closed, the ambulance drivers have to drive further to other hospitals in the area. So this is, oh, I don't think, did I not mention commercial properties? So the tax will increase for residential. It'll go up to $68, just one set amount. And it'll go from $47 to $136 for the commercial properties. So this is a special tax, so that's why it needs 2/3. And there's, they really feel the funding is needed because Alameda County has really cut back on its paramedic support, and the prices for advanced life-saving equipment are rising. And our fire department, this is for Albany, has seen a 34% increase in calls for emergency services in the past 10 years. That's kind of interesting. Those against feel that here a homeowner with a small 750 square foot, 1-bedroom condo pays the same amount as an owner of a 4,500 5-bedroom house. And they feel that's really not fair, that the owner of a small house has to pay the same amount. And other cities, Berkeley's actually an example, has voted to tax residents and commercial properties more on square footage. Berkeley actually passed two such measures last March. I believe one was the schools. So that is Measure EE. And I think that is it for Berkeley, for Albany. We had BB, ranked choice voting. We have DD, utility users tax. We have the real property transfer, CC, and then the paramedics, EE. So are there any questions on that? So what I'm wondering, if we have energy and time remaining, if any of you have or want to have any questions on the state propositions. I'm assuming we have not sent our ballots in yet. We could try to answer some of those. I could also refer you, if you'd like to look at even a specific proposition, the League of Women Voters has a lot of videos. You can either look on our site, League of Women Voters, BAE for Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville.org. You'll see videos on state propositions. There's also one in Spanish from our San Diego League. And looking on votersedge.org, there I just found the San Diego League also had the propositions. Some of these you can just click on the proposition you want. the state proposition. Others, you might have to listen through the whole thing, but I think you can advance that anyhow. So there are lots of resources out there. Yes, Ellen. Oops, could you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm unmuting. I have a question on Prop 23, which is the proposition about the dialysis units. And one of the things that it says, and I know that this came up a couple of years ago in the election, one of the things it says is that this proposition requires the dialysis clinics to accept all insurance. Is that new? Is that not already what the dialysis clinics have to do? Do you know that? I can't seem to find that information anyplace.
Do you want me to respond?
If you, yes, I would love you to respond.
I gave a presentation on this. I think that almost all people are paid by Medicare. Now, if a person,
Yes, that's what
that's what I think about. So it's a tough one, and I've seen the ads on TV. You know, there's two great big for-profit companies that run the dialysis centers, and they've had some pretty convincing, very expensive ads that shows old people, I'm going to die if I don't get, which is true. People will die if they need dialysis and do not get it. So, but it's a tough one. I think what it is the state is taking more control. That's what it looks like to me.
I wanted to just,
So,
oh, go ahead,
please. No, I was going to ask a question, but please comment.
One thing that is in that law is that they do not want people to discriminate. If someone has private insurance, the private insurance pays more than Medicare and Medi-Cal. So they don't want that discrimination. Oh, I'm going to take you, you pay. I mean, I don't know how they work that out if their schedule's tight. And one thing I read too is that currently the way the situation is that a person's personal doctor is supposed to come and visit once a month while treatment is happening. That is how the situation is now. If that really happens, you know, that hopefully patients are aware of that. And another thing that I know Bobby had mentioned is that it does not necessarily have to be a doctor. It can be a nurse practitioner or an physician's assistant. Thank you. And you had another question. You had a question?
Well, yeah, it's hard for me to tell from the wording of the ballot. It says that it prohibits clinics from refusing to treat patients based on payment source. And I just wonder, the issue is, for me, is that not already law? And I don't know where to find the answer to that.
Oh, I don't know. Does that mean maybe, you know, I don't know either. A guess would be, you know, if a person is not legally here, do they get services? That's just my guess on that.
Well, I think that very well may be, but it also has to do with, I think, what Regina mentioned, the Medicare issue versus private insurance. Okay, well, that was my question. There are probably other people who have other questions. Thank you.
And that one, you can look on votersedge.com and you can see the money that's being spent, which is quite interesting, which you can just guess. And that's so interesting on a lot of these propositions when I see the money spent, and then you know who is going to benefit. And then you kind of make a judgment how that sits with you. The League of Women Voters does have opinions on these measures, and you can actually look if you're interested in knowing which ones. Sometimes they have this vote with the league, and we don't want to push that too much. We want people to make their own decision. But if you are interested, you could find that on the League of Women Voters California site, which is lwvc.org. And there's lots of good information there, and connects you to Voter's Edge too, where you just put your zip code in. So if you happen to live in Oakland, then it'll show all the Oakland measures and some details for that. It's a very useful site that I've enjoyed looking at when I have the time.
I need to double check, but I believe that the League of Women Voters did not take a stand on this measure, but I could be wrong. I'd have to look. I looked at it online and I don't remember.
I don't remember. Do you remember, Regina? Do you have the list?
I can look it up. I mean, it's pretty easy to find it online. That's my recollection. I could be wrong.
So the league took a neutral position.
That's what, yes.
They took a neutral position, yes. They're kind of wondering why voters should be deciding questions of record keeping and medical staffing.
Yes.
The uncertainty of costs and benefits of the measure leads the League of Women Voters to take a neutral position. There's always, there's disagreement about whether the presence of a doctor is always necessary, or it could exacerbate a doctor shortage. Yeah, so.
Right, I just couldn't find anything about the insurance, and I was concerned about that because I think that for people who are on Medicaid or any other kind of, I want, if it changes an existing law that does not allow these people easy access, that's one thing. If the existing law already allows equal access, then it's another way to look at it. Thank you for your information.
I have another comment about the dialysis centers. Is that we have an increased number of people that are getting very old, and people that have had diabetes long time, high blood pressure long time, and the kidneys fail. They need the dialysis. So I think more and more we're going to see the state moving in and trying to control these clinics, because as of now, it's the only place you can get to be dialyzed is either in a clinic, or, well, if you're in the hospital you get it, but you can't just go to your doctor's office. So you're really dependent on these clinics, and there's going to be more and more cases, more need. That's the purpose.
And I was trying to find out what the impetus was for this proposition. Was it because of issues with infection? Was it because this is such a dangerous procedure? I'm assuming people have died at kidney dialysis clinics. I don't really know, and refusing to treat people or treating them differently. I'm not sure what the impetus was. I haven't found that out. I need to kind of check with the medical community about that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know either, so I'm not much help. Thank you, though.
Are there other state measures? I know it's so funny. Sometimes people are so interested in the Uber independent contractor one. Others are very interested in the Prop 15 and 19, which makes changes in the property taxes. And 19 actually might apply most to us being seniors, because that's the one that is allowing people to, if they're replacing their residence, they're selling their house, they could actually go to any county and still retain their tax base, and they can do that 3 times. This is for seniors, the very disabled. If you're a victim of a fire or some other disaster, then you can only do it 1 time. So there's that part of 19, and there's a part of where grandchildren or your children inherit a home, and they can carry that original tax base from Prop 13 with that goes up 2% every year. They can retain that if they live in the house. Anyhow, so there's been a lot of interest on that one. So I thought I'd just bring that up if there are any questions on it. So, well, we have hung in there. This is great. I really want to thank the Ashby Village for this opportunity that Bobby and I could participate. And let me know if there are any questions or either on other measures, if we have just another 5 minutes, if we can hang in there. Let us know. And if not, I wish you happy voting. And we have all these options this year.
This is Marilyn speaking.
Yes, Marilyn.
And I don't have a picture, but or video, but I just wanted to clarify. You just said about Prop 19 that it says if your children inherit your house and they live in your house, then they can retain the tax base that you have. That's what this proposition addresses as well?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, I'll look at it. For some reason, yes, thank you.
It addresses that. Let's see if I have that in my Easy Voter Guide. I have it in my other one. I guess there had been so many cases where people inherited a number of properties and rented them out and they still had that tax base. So that's something they wanted to kind of close that loophole. Let me see if I have.
Okay, so that's what it is now it is limiting then if your children inherit it, to retain the tax base, they have to live in the house.
Yes.
And so
I think that's the way it is.
Yes, okay, that's good.
And of course, what's tricky is what if 4 children inherit the house? You know, they're not all going to live together in the house, are they?
Right.
I don't know how that works. If who knows? That's
Yes.
something I'm not aware of. So yeah, that was one other part of that measure.
Okay,
But
thank
have
you
a
so
look.
much.
It'll be explained more clearly on votersedge.org.
Okay.
Okay, great. So thank you all. I so much appreciate how our East Bay community just reaches out and is so interested in being informed in the election. It's really great, you know, and questioning the election, that's what it's all about, and not just taking voting seriously. So we have the option of going to the polls. You can find those locations also, I believe, on Voters Edge or also in the League of Women Voters site. Then we have the drop-off boxes. I know there's one behind City Hall in the parking lot in Albany. Then we have City Hall in Berkeley. I think the North Branch Library. I don't know them all. I think Northbury Community Center has a polling place. And no postage required if you drop it in the mail. So anyhow, thank you all so much. And thank you, Eric, for setting this up.
Yep. Thank you so much for your time and energy today. I feel like we learned a lot. So let's get out there and vote.
Great. Terrific.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you.
So welcome. We enjoyed.
It was fun to do it. Wasn't it fun to do that?
It was lots of fun. Great.
Yes, it was.
Take care.